And
Hey,
we're
man.
live.
Yep, we're live. We're testing different times of the day. It's in the afternoon, Wednesday. So,
Yeah,
you ready?
Wednesday, 4:30.
Let's do it.
Yeehaw!
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Real Investing Show, where we talk about real investing.
That's correct. And
That's-
today, what's our topic?
Today, we're going to be talking about Airbnbs versus long-term rentals.
Okay.
So back in the day, when I first started investing in real estate, it was like buy and hold is where you make all your money because
Right.
you get a property, you can hold it forever, all the tax benefits, all the cash flow. But now there are more options with Airbnbs and VRBO and all that kind of stuff. So, and you've had a good bit of experience with that. You actually have a whole portfolio of Airbnbs as well as traditional rentals. So I thought it'd be great for us to learn, myself included, learn from you on that. So, yeah, where should we start? Like, let's just say I am a guy who I know about traditional rentals. I've heard of investing in Airbnbs, but I've never actually done it myself. And I want to know, how do I decide if a house could be an Airbnb? What's better? What's worse? Talk to me.
Yep. So usually from a legal perspective, it's considered long-term rental or short-term rental. Short-term rental would be an Airbnb. Airbnb would be a short-term rental. VRBO, there's several different sites out there that you can rent it out on. There's even kind of these hybrid models where they're more like corporate housing. So it's for people that are going to be in a place for anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks. And so you may, like a traveling nurse or something along those lines, there are opportunities to cater to those people as well. So back in the day, you were talking about buy and hold. And with buy and hold, you're absolutely right. Like there's all of these additional benefits in comparison to doing a flip, right? Like you're going to buy and hold. But now you can buy and hold it, and you can either long-term rent it or short-term rent it. And with the short-term rental, man, there's just like Airbnb gives the ability for someone to dramatically increase the cash flow of their properties. So you may be able to do a faster equity pay down, or you just can create more cash flow depending on what you're looking for.
So, okay, you said something that interested me a minute ago. You said short-term versus long-term. Now, are the tax implications different then?
Ooh, talk to it. Well, I mean, the way you make your money may be classified differently. It may be considered more active income.
I see.
I'm not 100% sure on that. You talk to your CPA. You can structure it in different ways. We structured ours more like an S corp, so more money could pass through and then just pay us a salary. So, but from the legal difference in so the difference between a short-term rental and a long-term rental legally is usually considered 30 days. So most municipalities consider any rental over 30 days to be long-term rentals, and then all of the long-term rental rules and regulations apply. If it's below 30 days, if you're renting it out for less than 30 days, then short-term rental rules and regulations apply.
Okay. So, and do you know offhand some examples?
Every municipality is different in this. Some have literally no regulations. Some it's just completely outlawed. I know that like New York City will have weird ones where it's like you have to live in the building, but then you can rent it out. Some cities go off of zoning where they're going to allow short-term rentals in certain zoning. In the city that I have mine in, I'm in 3 different cities. 2 of those cities don't have any rules and regulations specific to it, just fall under the normal real estate rules and regulations. And then one of the cities that I have several in, they have a permitting process, an inspection process every year. And then you have to pay your transient tax. So you're like hotel motel tax in addition to normal sales tax.
Interesting. So, okay. So, wow, that's interesting. And does that come out automatically through Airbnb? Do they facilitate that, or do you have to do that yourself?
So Airbnb will facilitate certain parts of it,
Mhm.
and they'll actually pay your income tax to the state, or not income tax, your sales tax to the state on your behalf. They'll go ahead and collect those and pay those. They don't pay for municipality taxes, so they'll collect them for you, but then you have to pay that.
Okay,
So,
fascinating.
um, you know, pros and cons. Pros and
Yeah.
cons to Airbnb versus long-term rental. So the
Yes.
pros to short-term rental is you're gonna cash flow more each month, or you should. If you're not cash flowing more each month, you need to switch to long-term rental. Um, but you should be able to cash flow a significantly uh, uh, greater amount each month than with long-term rental. The
So
uh,
when you say significant, are you talking
Probably roughly
25%,
your
50%?
gross is gonna probably be double or a little more of what you would rent it out at.
Okay.
So now from that, and the reason I say your gross is because from that you're paying utilities that you wouldn't pay if it was a long-term rental. You know, you have additional maintenance costs, you have cleaning fees. All of those things can cut into your profitability. For us, we've probably increased our profitability roughly 50% increase to what we would be able to rent it out long term.
Okay.
So about 1.5x in comparison. Now, but my mortgage is the same whether I'm long term or short term. So my cash flow is 3 or 4 times greater with
Mhm.
a short term rental than it would be a long term rental. Does that make sense?
Let me see if I understand. So you're saying you're with the Airbnbs you have, you're getting 1.5 times more profit, not gross.
So, yeah. So what I'm bringing in each month is going to be about 1.5 times what it would be for a rental. So let me just put this in round terms.
Yeah.
Let's say if I could rent out a house for $1,000 a month,
Mhm.
I'm probably going to short term rent that out for $2,500 a month. Now I'm going to
Okay.
have additional expenses. So let's say it turns into being $1,500 a month that I'm actually getting after all of my expenses
Yeah.
in a comparison standpoint.
Yeah.
Well, let's say I had a mortgage on that and it was $750.
Yeah.
Okay, so if it were long-term rental, I'm only cash flowing $250 a month if I'm renting that out for $1,000 a month.
Hmm.
The fact that I'm able to get $1,500 a month from a short-term rental, now I'm cash flowing $750 a month.
That's
So my
3 times.
so my cash flow is probably going to be 3x. My
Mhm.
what I'm bringing in is going to be about 1.5 times after I pay those other expenses what I would get on a long term rental.
Got it.
So that's the benefit. The benefit
Yeah.
is you're able to. I mean, like in that situation, where you're 3xing your cash flow.
Yeah.
You, yeah, go ahead.
No. So how do you decide? So you buy a house in an area you like, you know you want to hold it long term. How do you decide if you're gonna do traditional long term rental or if you're gonna Airbnb it?
Great question. I'm going to run comps just like you would if you were flipping it. So you're going to look at what are there other Airbnbs in the area? How often are they rented out? What's their occupancy rate? What's their average nightly rate? And then I'm going to take the average nightly rate, the average occupancy rate of a like
Mhm.
property, and I'm going to run my numbers to determine if this is a good one. And a great resource for that is Price Labs. It's a paid resource. It's not something that if you're just kind of thinking about possibly doing it, you want to do. But if you're going to be doing this on a consistent basis, Price Labs does two things. It has dynamic pricing, so it's got an algorithm that's a lot like what hotels use. And so as demand increases, the prices increase, and as demand lowers, the prices lower, and it takes care of that for you. And then the other thing that it does is it gives you more insight into a particular market, so you can really dig into those numbers, because those numbers are a little hard to figure out. If you can do it, but it's very cumbersome to go through each individual Airbnb listing, looking at their calendar to see when's available and when's not. and kind of figuring that out on your own, where a dynamic pricing tool like that, or a resource like that can put all that in data format for you to look at easily.
It's called Price Labs.
Price Labs. AirDNA is another one, but it's a more expensive tool. So we chose to go with Price Labs.
And when you say expensive, like what? Give me a range of the price on Price.
You know
Labs.
what? I don't know. Price Labs is very affordable. I can't remember off the top of my head what it was, but I was actually pleasantly surprised with how affordable it was.
Like tens of dollars a month or hundreds of dollars a month?
Yeah, no, it was in the tens of dollars a month. I'm curious.
Okay. Yeah. I'm just kind of, I know we're doing our podcast, but I'm just kind of asking questions I want to know the answers to.
Yeah, so I'll check that out, and I'll look at that in a little bit, and I'll put it up here.
Yeah. So talk to me about managing Airbnbs. It seems like there'll be a lot more with management. So what does that look like?
Okay, so I want to answer that, and that's going to go under the cons list.
Oh, okay.
For sure.
So keep going with pros if you're.
The other pro I want to say, the other benefit to an Airbnb is you're getting eyes on your property far more often. So, Stephen, have you ever been in a situation where you rented it out and they rented it out for 2 or 3 years, and then you got that property back and it's not anywhere close to the property that you rented to them?
Oh, man. Yeah.
Oh, that's happened before? That's so surprising.
As a matter of fact, you bought one from me like that I believe you turned into an Airbnb on Northwest 20th.
I did. And
is this still an Airbnb for you?
Yes. Yeah. That's an Airbnb. Yeah. And it's done pretty well. It's not one of our best ones, but it's done well. That one has 5 bedrooms and 5, more beds, more heads, and the higher nightly rate you're able to get. So that was a good one for that.
Yeah.
That is that's a huge benefit, in my opinion, is we're able to get eyes on the property on a consistent basis. We've got a maintenance team and a cleaning team that's literally going in after every single turnover.
Yeah.
So you never get a major surprise. You'll get they kind of trash it, but they can only do so much damage, knock on wood.
Overnight or in one weekend.
Yeah, on a weekend. It's usually it's minor things. A lamp broke, or there's bedding that's got a stain on it. Okay, cons. Number one con, Can
I ask one follow-up question on that? The eyes on it. Okay, so when we talk about eyes on it, how hard is it with Airbnb? So you Airbnb a property, and let's say they break a lamp. How hard is it to get Airbnb to charge them or something like that?
Yeah. So, great question. I'm really glad you asked that. So if it is if a tenant or a guest ruins something and it's under $100, it's probably not worth going after them for.
Okay.
So what we did as a way to help mitigate that is we just put a $25 owner's fee on every single stay. And our thought process, and it kind of works out, is about every 4 or 5 stays, we're going to have some bedding, or we're going to have something that we need to replace and update. And so that helps offset that expense. And it just goes under the owner's fee.
Okay.
We did have an incident one time where we had an incident where the bathtub spout had been over leveraged, and I can only imagine how that happened. But the bathtub spout had been bent down, so there was a significant amount of weight on that spout, and it broke.
That's not weird.
Yeah,
that's not weird at all.
It broke the spigot coming out, and then it broke the tile right above it. Well, we can't replace just that tile, and we had to pay a plumber to go in there. It was like a $2,300 because we ended up retiling the whole thing, and Airbnb stepped in and paid. They paid for that because they have up to $1 million coverage for incidents like that. They paid for that, and then went and charged the guests for it.
Wow.
So
I wonder what the heck they did. That's so weird.
Yeah.
Never mind. Yeah.
So
where were we?
So you're getting to see this. So you're not letting a house just get completely deteriorated, which we know can happen, especially if you have animals and things like that. So that's an advantage. Here are some disadvantages to a short-term rental, or short-term rental, the management, the communication, there is so much communication, especially if you want to be a good Airbnb host. You got to think like people are coming in, they're going to have questions as to what the property is like. They're going to have questions as to what the area is like. So you're communicating a lot before they get there. Then you're communicating how to check in. Then you're communicating, and these are we use templated formats for a lot of this, but here's how to turn on the TV and log into the Wi-Fi and, all these different things that people have questions on. And so you spend a lot of time answering these questions. Then if something goes wrong, unlike with a long-term rental, where you may have a few days to get somebody out there, depending on what the issue is, if someone's only staying 1 or 2 nights, there's a sense of urgency to that. And so like just the other day, we had a refrigerator that's only like a year old, like froze and wasn't working anymore. And so I
don't know how to stop that noise, bro. I'm so sorry.
An important call. No, you're good. So we went and bought a mini fridge because this is someone's 4th of July weekend. They're expecting to have a good time. They're expecting to have a working refrigerator. So it's like we had to go get a mini fridge and put that in. If that were a long-term rental, well, first off, you may not even offer a refrigerator. That might be the tenants. Yeah. And if not, then, you may be able to get a guy out there, the next business day. Right. So there's just not that same sense of urgency.
Interesting.
So that's one other thing, communication, and trying to think what else. There is a significant amount more like intentional focus to make sure that your guests have a good experience if you want to maintain Superhost status. Superhost status means you have to have a 4.8 star average across your Airbnbs, and they reward you with that. You're going to get up toward the top of the list. You're going to be found easier. You're going to and guests know that they can trust a Superhost. So having Superhost status is a big deal. Maintaining Superhost status is catering a lot to people in sometimes ways that you don't think you should have to cater to them. And they just have high expectations and managing that. So that can be a stressor.
It's interesting you say that. When I've stayed in lots of Airbnbs across the country, and I had 1 or 2 surprisingly not good experiences. And so since then I've filtered all my searches to find Superhosts.
Yeah. And it makes a big deal to your bottom line. We lost Superhost status. And here's the deal is like you get one bad review, right? Like you really tick somebody off and they give you a 2 or 3 star, right? Just because they're mad. It's going to take so many stays at 5 stars to get back to that 4.8 star average. And that's what we face is we had a couple of experiences that went poorly. And just, it only takes a couple and then boom, you're struggling to get back. We got back, but it's a lot of, problem solving for people that you're like, man, like you should be able to figure out how to turn the AC down on your own. We literally had somebody ask. So one of the things that we do to give a great experience is we ask our guests before they get there. All of our properties have a Nest thermostat. By the way, there are certain things that if you're going to have it as an Airbnb, you need to have a key code on the door. And I would actually highly recommend Yale Autumn because it can link directly to Airbnb and it generates a new code for each guest, and that code expires after each guest's stay. So
it's called what?
Yale Autumn.
How do you spell that?
Like autumn, like fall, like the season.
Yeah.
And and Yale is the brand, but the Autumn is like their series, and there's a couple of different ones, but it actually links to your Airbnb account, generates a new code each time. And that way you don't have to give out the same code, because you give out the same code 20 different times. You've got 20 different guests that have the access to your property. You also want to automate several things. So like we automated where we put a Nest in on all of our Airbnbs. So it's a smart thermostat that we can control remotely. And so what we'll do is we would reach out to a guest and say, you know, when you arrive, what temperature do you want the house to be? Just as like that extra little, you know, hey, we're trying to provide great service for you. We had somebody reach out one time at like 11 o'clock at night asking us to adjust the thermostat for them. And we're like, it's the dial, you turn it. Like, so, I mean, just things like that you're like, I never thought I would have to be there. So those are some of those kind of more extreme examples. But here's what I want people to know. There are benefits to being an Airbnb. I have Airbnbs. I like Airbnbs because you can cash flow greatly. However, you have to understand that you are trading time for money when you are managing it yourself. Now, if you want to pay a third party to manage it, you're back into the same position as you were, more of a passive investor. But if you're doing it yourself, you're trading time for money and you're creating a job. This is not for somebody that has a full-time job and can't do this whenever it's necessary.
Yeah.
Like it does tie you back to your phone quite a bit.
Yeah. So great information. Anything else you want to share about Airbnb? We have, I probably have about 8 minutes before I've got a hard stop.
Okay.
And we can do a little bit of Q&A unless you have anything else on Airbnbs.
One other thing to factor in is your upfront cost in setting up an Airbnb. So on our last, and with prices going up like they have, I mean, to make a nice Airbnb and not just totally cheap out, for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, you're probably going to be spending close to $20,000. And that's, you know, because you're buying beds, bedding, silverware, all the furniture, TVs, everything that goes into a house. And you're usually starting from new. So, and then, you know, all the stuff that goes into it. So be sure to factor that in and don't undersell yourself and think, oh yeah, I can do this for $8,000. You probably can't unless you're buying all used furniture.
Right. Wow. Good. It's all good stuff, man. I'm glad we recorded this because, you know,
You're going to go back and watch it?
Yeah. I've been looking at Airbnbs and stuff. Okay, cool. Would you like to take some time and do some rapid fire Q&A?
Yes, sir. I'm going to pull up my questions.
The first one I have is from one of our viewers who asks, this is from Greg Wood. First question, what do I need to do to get my first investment property?
What do I need to do to get my first investment property? There's a lot of steps there, right? All right, rapid fire. 1, start with figure out your criteria, understand where you want, what you want to do. What is your end goal? Are you looking for some quick cash? Are you looking for long-term wealth? What is your goal? Define your criteria and then start looking for that criteria. Then 2, find the deal and know that you like, and start looking and spend 10 minutes a day and look at 5 deals every day that come on the market. Most of the time you're saying, no, that's not a deal. That's not a deal. That's not a deal. You start to familiarize yourself with your criteria. You're going to find a deal because you're going to know what your criteria is. And then 3, make sure that you've got the money to be able to secure it. You know, whether that's a hard money lender, and just underwrite your numbers to a hard money lender. If you've got cash, great. You can underwrite easier. Is that too long?
No, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, another thing, it hit one of us up, Greg, and we might be able to help you with that. You know, message me or message Taylor. And so Taylor, by the way, Taylor Davis is with, what's the title of your company in Norman?
Well, I'm with Keller Williams, but Home Sales by Davis at Keller Williams.
Home Sales by Davis with Keller Williams. So you could probably help a first-time investor as well.
100%. And that's actually one of the first things we do is we do a buyer consultation.
Yeah.
We understand what your wants and needs are, and we help you define your criteria.
Yeah. So, so Greg, that might be worthwhile, contacting Taylor and scheduling an appointment. And Taylor's been buying investment properties since like the mid 2000s. So, and he's a real estate agent in Norman. So, and you work all over Central Oklahoma,
Correct.
actively all over Central Oklahoma. And
I love having conversations with people. So if people want to reach out, I'm happy to have a one-on-one.
So there you go, Greg. And I'll tag Taylor in this. Maybe tag yourself in the comments, Taylor. Greg commented there. Okay, next question. You got
all right. What is the scariest part about investing in real estate?
What is the scariest part of investing in real estate? The scariest part for me now is missing out on a good deal. It's an irrational fear, but in the back of my mind, I think, man, this could be a really good deal. I don't want to pass it up. But reality, that's a myth. That's a fear, and that's a myth. Reality is there's always going to be another deal. Like, there's always another deal. So that, for me, is the scariest thing now. When I very first started, we bought our first property when I was 19 years old. So my scariest thing back then was, am I going to be able to afford it? Am I going to get into too many expenses? Is it going to cost me too much? But like, that was only my very first deal. And I was like, okay, yeah, this will work. But now my scariest thing about real estate is, am I going to pass up something that I really should buy?
Right.
So that's a good question, bro. Next question for you. In our last episode, let me frame it this way. Taylor, you said that you grew up poor and that motivated you and kept you hungry when you first started getting involved in real estate.
Right.
Well, now, without sharing too much about your personal information, you are very far from poor at this point. What keeps you hungry and motivated now?
What keeps me hungry and motivated now? Habit. I have a habit of being hungry and motivated. I think that it's comfortable for me to be hungry and motivated. It's almost uncomfortable to sit around and not have something. So I think that was a habit at some point I developed. But also I have a really big why. So let me re-answer that question. I have a big why, and I love to help and see people have success through real estate. So like my big why is like to help others create wealth through real estate. And that's because as I started to create wealth through real estate, I looked around and I was like, I don't want to do this alone. Like I love to see other people coming along and doing it. So like, I mean, this is big mindset, but my big, hairy, audacious goal is one day I want to have a net worth of $100 million. I want to help 10 people get to a net worth of $10 million. And I want to help 100 people get to a net worth of $1 million plus. So that's my big goal. That drives me and that pushes me to see what's next.
Yeah, it's exciting. Good word, man. We probably have time for maybe 2 more short ones.
2 short ones?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to kind of the same question, but I'm going to ask you, what was the scariest? So let's go back. Like, what was the scariest thing you faced when you first started in real estate?
The scariest thing I faced when I first got involved in real estate, I was 19 years old. I was working for like $10 an hour. I was working on floors and doing ceramic tile. And the scariest thing was I was 19. I already had 2 kids. And like, we were like right on the edge financially, and I saved money, but we just didn't have a lot extra. So the scariest thing for me was something big would happen and I wouldn't have the money to fix it. That was the scariest thing for me.
How many people do you know that have done more than 2 deals and not made it as a real estate investor?
I don't know. No one comes to mind. I would say that I don't know anyone personally. All right. So the question is, how many people do I know that have done 2 or more deals and have not made it in real estate? I don't know of anyone personally, but because of research, a lot of times we will target people that own 2 houses or less.
Okay.
And sometimes they become tired landlords.
Okay.
So I would say it this way. If you are active with your properties in management and repairs and everything else, then you can make it pretty easily, even if you just have 1 property or 2 properties. If you're relying on professional contractors and if you're relying on a professional property management company, there's not going to be nearly as much margin there. And you're going to really need to have more like 8 to 10 properties before you are cash flowing well. Would you agree with that?
I think it depends. So in general, yes. Can
Yeah.
you get around that? Yes. I think that. So the reason I ask is I think everyone has that exact fear. The fear that you had when you first started, especially on their first one, is can I do this? And the
Right.
truth is on your first one, you're as inexperienced as you will ever be.
Yeah.
Right. And so we tend to. So I've seen people try this one time. They in their mind failed or just didn't do as well as they thought. And so they gave up and they're like, yeah, that real estate was a horrible investment for me. Well,
Mhm.
you were as inexperienced as you could possibly be. You've only done one deal.
Mhm.
And so if you have the experience, if you go 2 or 3 or 4 you see people that do 2, 3, or 4 deals. Of course, they're going to find success in it because real estate is
Mhm.
fairly easy to be successful in. It's not rocket science. You just
Mhm.
you may make your mistakes and you're probably going to make those early on, but people fail to look at it as education. And that's what
Mhm.
cracks me up is you'll go to a university and spend $200,000 for an education to go get a job starting at $60,000 a year,
Right.
but you only made $1,000 on your flip, or you've got a rental that barely cash flows, and you go, yeah, that was a failure. And it's like, no, that doesn't make sense.
You made all you learned all these things.
Right.
That's good. I'm going to be reflecting on that answer for a while. Let me throw you one more quick one, Taylor, then we'll wrap up. Is investing in real estate get rich quick?
No, it shouldn't be. Investing in real estate should never be a get rich quick scheme. First off, if you're getting rich quick, if you're in real estate to get rich quick, you're sacrificing all of the benefits that real estate provides, and that is long-term wealth. Like you're sacrificing the long term for the short term. And that's why I don't flip houses hardly at all anymore. We do it on occasion, just if it happens to be the right thing at the right place and it doesn't fit our criteria for a hold, but I can make some money on a flip. I'll do that. Yet for the most part, I'm looking for buy and hold strategies because that's where the wealth is.
Yeah, it's a good word. Taylor, I love you, man. Thanks for doing the show.
Dude,
We'll be back.
awesome. See you next
Hey
time.
guys, share this with your friends. Follow Taylor, follow me, like, comment, share. Send us your questions about real estate. Thanks for watching The Real Investing Show.